What's up, guys? Welcome back to another My Week in Perfume, the series where I discuss what I wore throughout the week and my experience with it. As always, all fragrances mentioned will always be on screen and in the description. I love this series, It's a bit of a recap for me. I get to think about the fragrances that I wore throughout the week, and I really get to consider the wear experience and, in a way, document how my opinion changes about a particular fragrance as it keeps making more and more appearances. But let's get right into things. If you enjoy this type of content, if you want to keep up to date with a lot of fragrance related content, I'm going to have Amouage unboxings or Rouge L'Adore unboxings pretty soon. Be sure to hit the sub button, hit the like button, and let me know what your scent of the day was in the comments section. On Monday, I wore an Amouage, and I think this is a criminally overlooked Amouage, and it is Amouage Search in this absolutely stunning, like Tiffany blue bottle almost. Search is a very peculiar fragrance, and that's probably why it gets overlooked. This is an amazing, long-lasting citrus fragrance, but it isn't like any other citrus fragrance you've ever smelled. This is a citrus smoky fragrance. So you have these really juicy, effervescent, natural smelling citruses in the top, and it's contrasted with this dark, smoldering, smoky sort of base. And then, of course, right in the middle of everything, the supporting note is this beautiful, citrusy in and of itself, green, slightly wispy frankincense. This is an absolute stunner. Like I said, it lasts for a very, very long time. Some people say this smells like a lemon tree that has been set on fire. And honestly, that is a pretty apt description. I would say that gets the picture across to people pretty well, but maybe only on a surface level, because I think people really overlook the citrusy component of the frankincense itself. I believe there's green Hojari frankincense in here, and it's really a fresher take on that frankincense note that is super underrated. In general, wearing incense in the summer has been something I've been trying to do way more of. Okay, so that was Monday, Amouage Search. On Tuesday, I wore a new addition to the collection, and surprisingly, my only Jean-Claude Ellena fragrance. This is, of course, from Frederic Malle. This is Bigarade Concentree. So Bigarade Concentree, oh my god. Okay, so I mentioned this is new, but it's not leaving the collection anytime soon based on just this single wear. Oh my god. I sampled this before, but I didn't give it enough time. But when I wore it this week, I put on, yet again, probably like 15 sprays of this stuff, and it was utterly magnificent. This is an orange-centric fragrance, and I think Jean-Claude Ellena is the GOAT of orange fragrances. I've struggled with his style for the longest time, which is probably why I only own a single one of his perfumes. I've tried so many other things that he's made. He has this very particular way of perfuming things. He's sort of watercolory and transparent, and everything is very airy and fresh and light and wispy in the air. And it works for some scent profiles from him for me, and with others it just doesn't. But I think he's the king of citrus, particularly with orange as a note, because he's just made so many world famous fragrances with the note of orange. Obviously Bigarade Concentree, Cologne Bigarade, which was the version before this, Terre de Hermès. I think he also did Eau d'Orange Vert, maybe for Hermès as well. So he's been around the block with orange as a note. But this fragrance is, I would say, a cool, spicy take on orange. You have this cardamom note that's sort of green and spicy in a cooling way that provides the contrast against this extremely airy and transparent, rindy, citrusy note. It only lasts for about 4 hours, but this is one of the best smells, I think, in my collection that lasts for a short amount of time. Like, I didn't mind the longevity whatsoever, because from citrus fragrances, I don't really expect longevity. And I think whenever I see somebody in a video in our comment section complain that, an Eau de Cologne or some super citrusy fresh scent profile doesn't last them a workday or 10 hours, I kind of get confused because it's kind of impossible from like a chemistry perspective. And the fragrances that are citrusy that do last 10 hours, like Sospiro Vibrato, they sacrifice the naturalistic element of the citrus, and there's always a trick. With Vibrato, there's like this powdery nuance, and it's just sort of annoying, and kind of smells synthetic. You're not going to get that with Bigarade Concentree. This is a true, beautiful, cool, spicy orange fragrance. And the orange note in this is really one of the best I've ever smelled. It's up there with Parfum de Empire, As Amour les Oranges for me, and that's high praise. Also, that fragrance that I just mentioned being one of my favorite citruses ever as well. So that was on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I continued the citrus binge, and this time I put a major dent in this bottle, okay? This is Chanel Eau de Cologne from their Les Exclusifs line. That dent is from one wear. Okay? When I tell you I wore probably 80 sprays of this, I'm not exaggerating. Because this fragrance is a true Eau de Cologne. It only lasts about 30 minutes. But it's one of the best 30 minutes you'll ever have. I wore this when it was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and I just needed a fragrance that was fresh, even among the fresh fragrances. Like the most effervescent thing in my collection, and this is by far that experience. So, like I mentioned, it's a true Eau de Cologne. So it's extremely citrusy. It has beautiful florals with like neroli in there, maybe some petitgrain, and then it dries down to just a very, very calm, almost transparent, almost not even present, ethereal, musky smell. And then you have to spray more on. So I sprayed this mostly on clothes to try to extend the longevity, but even then it only lasted maybe about 45 minutes. But man, I plan to get this bottle to at least half by the end of this summer. And if I put this much damage in it with one wear, I think maybe I'll do a little bit better than that. Maybe we can finish it. I don't know. Okay, that's 200 ml, by the way. Right, on Thursday, I wore another new fragrance in my collection. This is a little baby bottle, a little tiny baby bottle, as you can see, of Ciel Man by Amouage. This is a 50 ml little magnetic cap. Ciel Man. This is one from Amouage that you do not hear people talk about. And of course it's discontinued. It's hard to find. Resellers want ridiculous prices. This one popped up for a great price, and I jumped on it because it was actually one of the Amouage fragrances that I needed to complete the Amouage collection that I'm trying to build out right now. This reminds me of a 90s designer. It has this floral, aquatic, dare I say, like barbershop-y sportiness about it. And I have to say, I've heard people talk about this fragrance, but it did catch me off guard. There's a beautiful lavender note in there, but there's also what I can only describe as a slightly baby powdery, sort of fresh muskiness in here. And there's also, to my nose at least, something skanky, just a little bit dirty. I'm not sure what it is, but it's like a niche take on a 90s sporty floral aquatic. It's kind of a bizarre fragrance in my opinion, but I actually really enjoyed it. The florals are definitely white florals. They're clean, they're fresh, they're kind of heady. Maybe it's indols. Maybe they're slightly indolic, and that's why I'm picking up something slightly dirty. But yeah, Ciel Man, really interesting. Okay, moving on. On Friday, I wore. Oh, this is beautiful. I wore one of my favorite Guerlains to wear in the summer. This is from their Aqua Allegoria line, their limited edition Nerolia Vetiver Harvest Edition. This is a limited edition. I don't know when it was released. Maybe I can tell by the batch code real quick. I can't. But I don't believe they make this anymore. So this takes the Nerolia Vetiver DNA, which is obviously neroli, white florals, and vetiver, and they just add a master stroke. I think this is one of the best things Guerlain has released in the past decade. I really do. I'm very impressed with it. I put a massive dent in this bottle, as you can see. These bottles come like filled up to here. So what they do is they take that DNA and they add this extremely well balanced, almost Cartier Lanvol inflected honey note that's fresh. The honey in this is transparent. It's airy. It isn't sticky or heavy or animalic. That sometimes heavy honey can be animalic like that. And with the white florals, with the vetiver, it adds a sort of grassy undertone. I just think it takes a relatively boring scent and it turns it into something that is more than the sum of its parts. I think the scent profile is just completely elevated by this surprisingly summer appropriate honey note. And I think it's not like a honey from a bee. I think it's honey. I think they actually cite honey from like a specific type of blossom or a flower. I don't know how realistic that is, but yeah, beautiful, beautiful fragrance. Okay, on yesterday, I wore a Les Indemodables, and one of my more difficult Les Indemodables fragrances. This took me a little bit to actually come around to, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it. This is Rose de Jamal, and I wore it with the Extrait Absolu of Rose de Jamal. So, the original is an Eau de Parfum, and this is the Extrait, and these are roll-ons. Before I talk about the scent, I'm going to complain a little bit. So, these roll-ons, okay, you unscrew this, and it's a little roller ball, and cool. It sounds like it'd work great. These are shit, okay? And for the price, they just need to do a little bit better, in my opinion. Like, these are not cheap, okay? The cap is plastic. They sort of leak as well, which is not good with your expensive perfume. So, Les Indemodables, step up with your extraits here, okay? But Rose de Jamal is a fragrance. It's, like I said, it took me a while to come around to this because I like rose, but this is a green, very particular minty, stemmy rose. You really get everything about the plant. To me, the rose in this fragrance comes across as very pink, very fresh, but then you have the minty, stemmy, leafy qualities. There's an earthiness. There's a green aspect. There's a bitterness. And I believe there's also cedar wood in the dry down of this. And it goes from this minty greenness to this sort of almost musky woodiness in the dry down. I have to say, out of everything I wore this week, I'm on the fence the most about this fragrance. I'm going to give it its time, but I wouldn't be surprised in the future if I decided to move this on from my collection. But like I said, it's extremely high quality. I do really like it. I just think, honestly, it might have been a skill issue from me. I think I might have put too much on, and I went nose blind to it, and you know, that whole thing where it kind of ruins the wear experience. So I'm gonna give this more wears, but it is absolutely beautiful. And if you do enjoy rose as a note and you've never sampled Rose de Jamal, highly, highly recommend, especially if you want a fresh rose. Okay, now onto what I wore today, and this is jaw-dropping. Like, this is probably a top 10 smell in my entire collection. Every time I wear this, it's literally like gasp-inducing. Like, oh my god. And this is Parfum d'Empire Un Bel Amour d'été. This is so fucking good. Ladies, I don't know how many, I don't know what my audience percentage is separated between male and female, but this is probably the most feminine fragrance in my collection. I don't even care because it is astronomically beautiful. And I think gender in fragrance is bullshit anyway. Just wear whatever you want. If you like florals, if you like tropical, heady, really sort of damp, God, just magnificently detailed florals. You need to smell Un Bel Amour d'été. It's so sunny, so happy. It has this incredible sort of interplay between the gardenia and the champaka and all these different tropical florals. It's white florally, it's yellow florals, it's pink florals, all different types of things are going on. There's some vanilla in the base, which is why the perfume turns this color. That's the vanilla or the vanillin in here. And then there's this incredibly well-judged, very slight edge of this like dirtiness. There's just a little bit of funk. I'm not sure what's causing that. Maybe it's a little bit of cumin or something, but this is sexy. This is sultry. Yeah, probably a top 10 smell in my entire collection. Highly recommend. Not only the entire Parfum d'Empire brand, but of course that particular fragrance. So that has been my week in perfume. Great week. I love perfume. Just makes your week so much better sometimes. Let me know if you have the same experience. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the sub button, hit the like button, and let me know what you want to see next. I got reviews on the way. I got unboxings on the way. Always try to mix it up for you guys. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.